This is Lesson 2, Getting to Know the Workspace. In this lesson, you'll learn how to best use the Adobe Photoshop CS5 work area. You'll also discover how to open a document using Adobe Bridge, how to use the Tools panel, and how to easily navigate images. So I'm going to start out by choosing File, Browse, and Bridge, and you'll notice that there is a Done file, PS0201 Done, in your PS02 Lessons file. And in here, you'll see some simple changes have been made to this image. And we're going to start this image from the beginning, take you through the steps so that you're forced to go in, try some different tools, try to arrange the panels, and take advantage of this workspace. So I'm going to go ahead and close this up, access Browse and Bridge, and open up the original image, PS0201. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is just explain the Tools panel. You'll see that I'm clicking on the gray area up here at the top and dragging this out, essentially undocking it so you can see it a little better. You'll see as a default, the Tools panel is in a one-column format, but you can click on the double arrows to change this to 2 if it helps your workspace a little bit. Now I'm clicking on the arrows again to go back to a single column format. You'll see that the tools are divided up into sections. This first section are the selecting, cropping, and measuring tools. You'll see the second section are the retouching and painting tools. This third section, those are your drawing and type tools. And then down on the bottom, the 3D and navigation tools, with your foreground and background color being at the bottom, and also the quick mask mode. So we'll go over some of these as we go throughout the additional lessons. Now, first of all, what I'm going to have you do is we're going to take advantage of using some of these tools. So I'm going to drag this toolbar by grabbing the gray bar. And you'll see that when I do this, that a bar appears down the side. And when I see that bar, I can release and it becomes docked again. Now, you'll notice that all these tools that have little arrows down in the lower right-hand corner mean that they have additional tools that are hidden within them. I'm going to select, though, this first tool, which is the Spot Healing Brush, and you'll notice again that when I select each one of these, that their options change. So if I'm on the Spot Healing Brush, I can indicate that I want Content Aware on. Now, I'm going to go ahead and remove this water bottle down here. So I'm taking this brush tool, the Spot Healing Brush tool, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint over this area. And you'll see that Photoshop does an excellent job with replacing content with the surrounding content. So you can see that I've replaced it essentially with this grass that's kind of zipping by. So I'm selecting the brush tool and choosing Color Replacement. This is a new tool that's been added in CS5. And I'm going to go ahead and first of all, I'm going to make sure it's set for color, which is fine. I'm going to choose the brush that I want to use as well as the color. So I come over here and you'll see here's the size of the brush. I'm going to click on this and I'm going to change the size of my brush and also the hardness, which is how hard the edge is, whether it's a soft brush or a hard brush. So I'm changing the size to 400, pressing the tab key and changing the hardness to about a 20%. That means it's a relatively soft brush. It's not going to have a hard edge on this. Now, I'm just going to click anywhere up in the options bar to get out of that brush area. I'm going to choose that I want the limits to be discontiguous. That means I don't want you to take like colors and only change them. I want you to change all the colors that I click and drag over. I'm going to select my color next. So you'll notice that I'm going to the Swatches panel, and I can either click on a color in here, or if I'd like, I can change the color by clicking once on the foreground color. The color picker comes up and I can choose a yellow from here or I can enter a value. So like for instance, if I know the color that I want to use, I'll go ahead and enter 241, press the tab, 231, 66, and click OK. So I'm all set up here. I'm going to go ahead and just click and paint over this area. And you can see that my color is coming through, but all the detail or the grayscale of the image is remaining the same. Now let's move on and access some other tools. I'm selecting my Zoom tool next, and you'll notice that as a default, you'll see Scrubby Zoom is turned on. And when you click with Scrubby Zoom on, you continue to zoom in until you release your mouse. This kind of confuses me a little bit. You can decide whether you like that feature on or not. I'm going to go ahead and turn that default feature off. I'm pressing Control or Command 0 to fit in the image into the entire window. I have Scrubby Zoom unchecked, and with it unchecked, I can click and drag a marquee over exactly where I want to zoom. And I feel that this is just a little bit more control for me. Now I'm pressing Control or Command minus to zoom back a little bit at a time. Now let's look at the entire workspace here. I'm going to open up another image. So I'm choosing File, Browse and Bridge, opening up PS0202. And you'll notice that as a default, I am opening up all my windows as tabs. Now some people prefer this, some do not. Some people just need to understand how it works in order to make it work well. So like for instance, if I take this new image and if I did want to incorporate it into my other image, you'll see that I can take my Move tool and I can drag one image to another this way by clicking and dragging up to the tab and then coming back down. So you'll see, let me take this guy up and back down. And there it lands. I'm going to delete that. I really don't want that image there, but I wanted to make sure that you saw how you could do that. Now, what you can also do is take advantage of arranged documents, and you can choose to view images 2 up or more. Another thing that you can do is that you can choose to float all your windows, and that pretty much puts this back into the way Photoshop looked several versions ago where all of your windows were floating. If you would prefer not to have these windows tabbed, choose Edit, Preferences, or Photoshop Preferences on the Mac. Select Interface, and you'll see that in here you can uncheck Open Documents as tabs to have them floating. Okay, next we're going to talk about panels in the workspace a little bit. You'll notice that I do have panels off to the right in this docking area. If I don't want the panels in here, I can click on the tab and drag them out, or drag them back and you'll see a border appears around the group of tabs that I'm putting this back into. Now these panels can also be stretched out or pushed in. You'll see that some are collapsed to icons. I can click on History, for instance, to bring this up, or the mini bridge. Now you'll also notice up in the upper right that we have different workspaces that we can select from. And if I choose Design, the panels that are up here are the ones that are appropriate for a designer or painter for painting. You'll notice also that there's an arrow here that I can choose several other workspaces or even create my own. So if I customize my workspace, I can choose New Workspace and save the panels that I want visible at all times. If you need to reset any workspace, like for instance, if I go back to Essentials, I can reset Essentials by choosing this drop-down menu as well. And everything will go back to the way it was when it was originally launched. I'm going to do one more thing with this image to kind of force myself to use some of these panels. You'll see my Swatches panel over here. I want to pull this out so I can see it a little bit better. All of the panels have panel menus. And if I click and hold on this panel menu, I can choose that I want to see a small list. And now I can see my swatches as a list. This can be a little bit easier if you have custom colors that you've created. Now I'm going to select the pure cyan blue color. I'm going to my regular brush tool, so I click and hold and choose brush. I'm clicking up on my brushes panel and setting this for 300. 0% hardness, which means it will really soft brush. And then I'm changing my blending mode up here in the options to overlay. I want to retuck the swatches panel back in, so I just drag it back over. I'm going to press Ctrl 0 to make sure I'm seeing the entire image. The next thing I'm going to do is paint, but I want to make sure I get edge to edge on this. You'll notice that you have screen modes up here in the middle of your workspace. I can access different screen modes by releasing on the name, like for instance, full screen mode with menu bar, or full screen mode, which takes me into a black area without any tools or panels. Or I can simply press F, and that will cycle me through these modes. Now, I'm going to go ahead and collapse swatches, and you'll notice that I went into the full scale mode with menu bar, so that I had this gray area surrounding my image, and it makes it easier for me to paint from edge to edge. Now, if you don't like what you've done, you can undo it. We are painting directly on the pixels in the background layer. You're going to see how to do effects like this later in this book using adjustment layers. So hopefully you've been able to navigate through this lesson and learn a little bit about the panels and the options and some of the items up in the application bar. And if you have questions about this as you go through, use the book as a reference. A whole bunch of tips and tricks in this lesson written out in the book that can help you.